Sports Hub Celtics show heading to a Game 7. This is a game that I don't think anybody, including myself, I thought this was going 5. Thought was going to be played. But here we are. I'll open it up to you, Chris. You, B-Rob, Brian Robb of MassLive here with us too. Where are you at in terms of nervousness for this game right now? Because I got to be honest, I'm pretty effing nervous, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am.
I understand it's like panic at the parquet, and I get it. I still think the Celtics will win. I think this is sort of classic Celtics of playing with their food and pushing it too far. But I freely acknowledge that, look, they could lose this game, and I did not think it would go to 7. I look at the position they've put themselves in. My biggest takeaway from this is that they've reverted back to the team they were last year before Tatum's injury and the team that was going to get eliminated by the Knicks, regardless of whether Tatum got hurt or not. And that's too many threes, too much your turn, my turn between Tatum and Brown, not enough stuff happening off the ball. And Mazzulla being pretty stubborn about the way that they're going to play and not necessarily making the adjustments. You know, this would be my biggest takeaway, I should say, would honestly be, even though I think Mazzulla should be coach of the year, he did a phenomenal job this year. But this would be damaging for him because you look at every time he's been eliminated in the playoffs, he's been outcoached and had the better team.
Chris, 3 of the 4 years.
Yeah.
Miami in the Eastern Conference Finals is a team that you had no business losing to. But you know what? You can talk about like Spoelstra, championship DNA still there with Jimmy Butler. Okay, fine. The Knicks last year, obviously, because to your point, they were losing that series whether or not Tatum got hurt. And now this year, to Nick Nurse and Joel Embiid and Paul George and this Sixers team, and I'm with you, like there's a lot of things that you can point to. And Game 6, to me, it was the dueling pianos where it's just Jaylen Brown pounding the ball into the floor for 20 seconds.
Too much from Jaylen.
Jayson Tatum's turn. Because to me, in that game, it wasn't the threes. Game 2, 100%, I think it was. And Game 2 is the one I look at and go, you want to talk about a missed opportunity? Because this series has changed since Embiid has come back. So take care of business in Game 2.
That's a good point.
And you didn't do it because you played with your food, and I think you took the Sixers way too lightly at the beginning of this series, and now you're in a situation where it does feel like momentum is flipped. The Sixers are playing good basketball. I look at that lineup now with Embiid. Paul George is playing significantly better than he did at the start of this series, too. And I think you're in a really tough spot here where, man, you better make some threes tonight. You better have someone step up, whether that's Peyton Pritchard, Derek White.
Let's put out the APB for Derek White. There were some encouraging signs.
Hits a couple threes.
Yeah, he hit 3 threes, and hopefully he can get his confidence back. But, and again, Mazzulla defended him earlier in the series, and I understand why. That's what you have to do for your players. And Derek White is a winning player. I get it with his savvy, his smarts, basketball IQ, his hustle, his defense. But a lot of those things you're talking about, in terms of chase down blocks and keeping loose balls alive, and I can get that stuff from Jordan Walsh. What separates Derek White is that he gives me all that stuff and scores the basketball.
Thank you.
And so if he's not going to score the basketball or knock down shots, that's problematic for the Celtics.
You got to have a quicker leash when it comes to him. Sam Hauser's another guy that I point to, too, and say, you look at the minutes, all right, like, what are you providing here versus what I can get on the bench? And I'm with you. I just think, because while it was too many threes in Game 2, bigger picture, you're right, where the offense has gone away from what was so successful this year. And you saw that again in Game 6 when it was just Tatum and Brown. And man, Derek White hit those threes, yes, and that's great. But in the first quarter, too, B-Rob, I don't know if you saw it, like just the confidence, man, that he had. Missed a couple bunnies, had a brutal turnover, and just not anywhere close to the player that you're used to seeing in years past when it comes to Derek White. And that's a huge issue for them. They have to have a third scorer here in Game 7 step up if they're going to have a chance.
And that's why I think you have to consider starting Pritchard.
Oh.
In this game.
Okay.
Just in Hauser's place.
Okay.
Just because the offense has been so much better in this series, numbers-wise, when Pritchard has been on the floor, whether that's by himself or alongside Derek White. But you need a reliable third option right now on the floor with the way the Sixers are defending Jaylen and Jayson in isolation situations, because Nemi hasn't been
Oh,
That guy.
Oh, have you picked up on that?
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Did the film show you that? Yeah.
It's almost like what we thought would happen before the season. It took like 86 games in terms of the big man situation, but we got there now. They got there at the worst possible time of being like, okay, this is not ideal. And there's just so many things, guys. You've talked 3 or 4 of them already, and you can go down the list in terms of like what's gone wrong right now for this team in the last couple of games, and that's what makes me worried because there's a lot of holes to plug right now. And the Sixers, I feel like, kind of know what they're doing. They've already tightened the rotation. They've got multiple options everywhere. And the Celtics and Joe Mazzulla have a lot of tough choices to make and a lot of holes to plug.
I want to ask you, B-Rob, when you look at the series at this point, in your mind, and I think I know the answer based on what your answer just was with Peyton Pritchard, but what is the bigger issue for the Celtics in the last 2 games in your mind? Is it offense or defense?
Offense.
I would agree with that.
Offense is the issue right now because you're not... Jalen has had a rough series in isolation stuff against some good Sixers defenders. Like Paul George is playing phenomenal in this series. Mm-hmm. He looks like he's 5 years ago. Looks like OKC Paul George.
Looks like he's back on the juice, Paul George.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. But he had those 25 games off.
Yep.
At the end of the season. So it's kind of like, I don't know if it's not similar, obviously far different situation than Tatum, but I wonder how much that helped him. Like, you're suspended, but he's probably a lot less beaten up than a lot of guys after 82 plus games. And so, but yeah, in my mind, it's offense because that's Derek White's not there. Payne Pritchard's your only guy that's averaging in double figures on the roster outside of Brown and Tatum right now. And then everything else is just inconsistent or a mess, or guys just Joe Mazzulla aren't playing. And so that leads to trouble because that leads to tough choices for Joe Mazzulla. And he adjustments has obviously not been as strong in the playoffs over the course of his career. And now you have a lot of tough choices in Game 7 now, figuring out what you can get out of this group offensively.
I mean, I can't believe that we're actually at this point.
It's kind of wild.
Where you're getting in Game 7 here, and that Paul George and Joel Embiid, the dogs of all dogs when it comes to the NBA, are potentially going to bounce you in round 1. Really? Like that's what's going to happen here. It's just it's a wild situation for the Boston Celtics, and one that, quite frankly, if they don't win this game tonight, I do think sort of shakes the foundation in terms of what you're doing here with this franchise. We'll get into that on the other side here. 98.5, the Sports Hub Celtics Show.
This is the Sports Hub Celtics Show.
About Ron is in Dudley wants to talk about the Celtics. What's up, Ron?
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Good, Ron.
Let's be honest. Philadelphia has been the better team the last 2 games.
Yes.
And Mazzulla needs to make some adjustments. And I think tonight, if I was him, I would play Shiloman, Vela, Jordan Walsh, and Hugo in 3-minute stints like hockey, and pick up Maxey 94 feet. I'd pick him up from when he gets out of the locker room and make him as tired as you can. Because right now the Sixers go as far as he goes. And if you can speed him up and make him tired and get Embiid to play defense and some pick and rolls, that's going to be your best chance. I'll hang up and listen to your thoughts.
I mean, I do like the idea of playing Shireman. I think Walsh has been good on Maxey. I think the problem is with the trade-off there is if you're putting those guys in, and I would say, Ugo and Jordan Walsh, in offense is the issue. Now you're making it easier because even if you get Embiid in the actions, whoever's on Ugo or Jordan Walsh is just going to sag off and load up and help.
Yep.
So that's the problem there. My I don't want to say solution because I don't have the answers, but the thing that I would attempt, I would put Garza in the rotation ahead of Vucevic. I think he plays hard. No one they have is going to be able to cover Embiid one-on-one. Garza can at least space the floor on offense. He plays hard. He's a pest. He can offensive rebound. He could give you sort of an energy spark. That is this change that I would make.
I'm good with Vucevic. I've seen the experiment. It doesn't work for me. Not making shots right now either. Looks like he's 108 years old because he is 108 years old.
Plays in no man's land in the drop coverage.
100%.
I'm like, where are you dropping to? You didn't drop far enough back to stop the drive, but you also are like too far away to stop the 3. Where are you?
In terms of like the Sixers being the better team over the last 2 games, I mean, really, it's the last 6 quarters where it feels like they've sort of taken over, and I don't think you can argue that. I would just say that that goes back to what we talked about in the first segment. When you play with your food in a game 2 that you had no business losing, yes, has the change in this series taken place with Joel Embiid coming back, and after that, game 4 working himself potentially back into shape, has that made a difference? Absolutely. You shouldn't have put yourself in a position here where the Sixers had an opportunity to be in a spot where they could change the series based on the lineup that they're now playing. But you didn't take care of business in game 2. You did play with your food like you have in years past. And Chris, I don't know if you feel the same way, but I did think that this year was different. Just based on the way that they played throughout the regular season. You know, you're such a talented team over previous years. I thought that this team kind of played with an edge that you saw sort of similar to those Isaiah Thomas teams.
Oh, yeah.
Where there was a sense of urgency that they played with all year long. And that kind of went out the window, and you reverted back in game 2, I thought, to the team that we've seen in the past where it's, hey, these series are going to go a lot longer than you think that they should be going. And now you find yourself in a situation where you did play with your food, and I do think it's a different matchup than it was earlier in this series.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. And there's something, I feel like they have lost their identity a little bit here. And in my mind, it coincides sort of with trying to get and actually getting Tatum back to the player he was before the injury. I think Tatum's had a strong series. Now, I'll tell you, his fourth quarter scoring has not been good. Like in 2 of the 3 games they've lost, there was game 5. He had, I think 3 points in the fourth quarter or no points in the fourth quarter. And then game 2, he had 3. So there were games here where he didn't do anything in the fourth quarter. But overall, he's been their best player in the series. Game 5-0, game 2 was the 3.
I think game 5, Brown and Tatum, I think were 0 for 8 combined in the fourth quarter, if I have that right.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, I'm looking at it now, 0 for 8. But for some reason, and this is the problem for the South, this is the conundrum. When they get a better version of Tatum, it seems to be, it doesn't fit this team. They seem to get a worse version of the overall team. In other words, they've gone back to more of the my turn, your turn type of thing, more of both Tatum and Brown pounding the ball into the floor, more of jacking up threes. In fact, do you know who leads this series in most three-pointers attempted per game?
Jayson Tatum.
8.7 per game, and he's shooting 59% on twos. He's shooting about 36% on threes. And I'm not blaming him for where they're at. It's not on him. But it's just the way they're playing, and I don't know, feel free to disagree, either one of you, but the way they're playing, to me, is sort of catering to him and more suited to him than the identity they built during the year and what was happening when he first came back, which was he was maybe off the ball a little more. He would sort of crash from a corner on a cut. I think both Tatum and Brown, when the other one whoever doesn't have the ball, you cannot just stand there as a spectator. You have to make your guy guard you. And both of them in the past have shown they can move without the ball. But right now, what they're doing, neither one of them is cutting, moving without the ball, getting the ball in the run, trying to do something without. It's all, let me take the ball 30 feet from the hoop, and then I'm going to diagnose and do my thing.
I think that's all fair. And the pace, too, I think is part of that, too, in terms of getting up and down the floor, running off, make baskets and misses. That's something that is certainly not Tatum's forte. The game slows down in the playoffs inevitably. But I agree with all that, guys. And here's the problem. Those guys, I wonder, are just putting it on themselves, being like, looking around this roster right now, looking around what they're getting from Derek White, from Nemi, and being like, we have to do more. This is our only path forward, even though that's not a good path either, going against this Sixers team that has some solid wing defenders, that has like a rim protector and Embiid back. Mm-hmm. And I think it's honestly on Joe Mazzulla. Okay, you figure out the right guys to put on the floor around those two, because far too many often in this series, Tim, I feel like he hasn't gotten to that combo at all, period. And so whether it's the starting group, which has been a 0 offensively all series long, or leaning on Vooch, missing shots, looking kind of lost on both ends of the floor, it's like, go figure out what got you here to this great regular season for 82 games, and then he's kind of just gone away from that.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, it hasn't happened yet, and it's going to be interesting to see what type of leash some of these guys get in a deciding Game 7 as well. I mean, you've rode with Derek White here for a while, and I just wonder if this is the game right here where if Derek White doesn't have that confidence, you saw it not so much last game. Obviously, he knocks down a few threes. But it was game 5, the first time, really, you could kind of see him hesitate a little on those open looks. And then by the time he's like shooting, you got no shot, man. You can see Derek White sort of thinking before he shoots in those spots. And that's just from like a lack of confidence. And look, he hasn't shot well all year for sure.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's been glaring in this postseason. And I just think from a confidence perspective, maybe those threes going in game 6 sort of changed that. But certainly going into that game, it wasn't there. And yes, you still do get a big offensive rebound earlier this year. You get the chase down blocks in this series as well. But the negatives there, especially offensively when it comes to Derek White, has been glaring, and I think one of the big issues for this team as well. Because if you don't have sort of that reliable third scorer here, you run into some major issues, and they certainly have so far. And I just think long term here, even if you're able to get out of this series, the ceiling of this team moving forward, it's going to change based on the way that Derek White is playing. That's going to be a huge issue for them moving forward if he continues to shoot the ball the way that he does.
Tim, I want you to take a listen to something that Jayson Tatum said after Game 6 that I thought was really instructive about how this team, I think, is sort of struggling to grapple with the idea of Tatum's fully healthy now, or at least he looks fully healthy, and we have to play the way that gives us the best Jayson Tatum, but also we have to play the way we played that got us here.
Our intentions are good. Like we want to go out there and play the right way and win. It's just, we just got to be a little bit more together, a little bit tougher, play with more pace, play faster. How they have played majority of the season than since I've been back. Just kind of getting back to who we are.
Did you catch the they? He starts at how we've played, how they played, and then since I've been back. I think that quote, he's being honest, that's sort of instructive about the push-pull here of there's a way we played before when Tatum was the undisputed number one player, and then there's an identity we developed while he was out that pushed everybody to be a little bit better, and now we're sort of struggling to balance those two things.
I think it's fair. 617-779-0985. Keegan wants to talk Celtics. Keegan.
Hey, I got to say, you could blame the last 2 losses on role players, bigs, but I feel like it really comes down to Jaylen Brown not being comfortable sitting back into that number 2 role. Because after he got a taste of being the number 1 option and the facilitator all season, now that he's the number 2 role, every time he gets the ball, he's just trying to do so much, and he looks awful. If we lose the series, we need him gone next season and bring in literally anyone else, because I am so sick of this guy. They talk about how smart he is, but he's not smart enough to just settle in and know his place. It really pisses me off. But, everyone else has to play better. Tatum's doing great, though. That's all I got.
I think Keegan's a Tatum guy. I don't know if I picked up on that.
And so, look, some of the things he said, he's not wrong. Like, Jaylen Brown can't have 10 offensive fouls in the series. Like, at some point, you have to adjust to the way the game's being played. And Jaylen Brown has the second highest usage rate in the playoffs behind Cade Cunningham. That's too high.
He was brutal defensively in Game 6 as well. He had some huge lapses on the defensive end. So, yes, absolutely. And, look, I do think when you talk about this team moving forward, if they were to lose this game, again, I do think you have to reevaluate here what you're doing, whether that's coaching or the roster. It's set like there's going to have to be a major shakeup here, because 3 or 4 years flaming out in the postseason to teams that you are on paper significantly better than isn't good enough, and there's clearly an issue there, because in the NBA that generally does not happen.
That's true.
It doesn't happen.
Just to go back to the Jaylen Brown point, though, I would also say, look, you have an NBA championship because of Jaylen Brown. And so, don't forget that part of it. Your team's in this position because Tatum missed 62 games because of the way Jaylen Brown didn't play the way he played in the regular season. We're not even talking about the team's not even a playoff team.
No, it's right. But you have not been getting first team All-NBA Jaylen Brown this series.
I totally agree with that. You have not, and I think he needs to play better. But I guess what I'm going to get to, and we talked about this off the air, and we could do more of it next segment, I am sort of infuriated by calls like that, not because you're criticizing Jaylen Brown and people think I'm in the bag for Brown. No, I agreed with his criticism of Jaylen Brown. What I disagreed with was there's no burden on Tatum. If Tatum plays great in Game 7, and he lights it up, it's like, see, Jayson Tatum's the man. He's the best player in the league. If he doesn't play well in this game, it will be like, well, he came back from an Achilles tear. Did you know that? Did you know that, McCone? I mean, no one even thought he'd come back. And, he got injured in Game 6 and tapped out in Durant fashion. And he had this injury going into Game 7. So, I mean, what could you really expect? There's never any stakes for Jayson Tatum.
All right, let's dive into that on the other side. Plus, I see you guys lined up. One open phone line. If you want to jump in, grab it. We'll get to your phone calls as well. Coming up next in the Sports Hub Celtics show.
We'll have more of the Sports Hub Celtics show next.
All right, McCone and Chris Gasper here with you on this Saturday, 617-779-0985. See you guys lined up, wanting to talk Celtics. Let's get to those calls now. We'll start with Al in Dorchester. Al, what's on your mind?
How you doing, guys?
Good.
I just want to talk. I want to talk about the bench, but quickly to the caller who's telling we need to get Brown out of here. I said, look, they messed up. They should have kept running the offense the way they did the whole year. And then we talked about how Tatum coming back, how it might affect it. And here's your answer right here. I says they both have the issue of playing iso ball, and that's a coaching. That's something the coaches need to address. As far as the bench goes, and it says it really pisses me off when you have coaches like Mazzulla in any sport who, when they get to the postseason, they don't want to stretch the bench. And I understand sometimes there's a talent issue, but you have a bench right here that matches up well with the 76ers. When you have Hugo. Even Ron Harper Jr., who shows capabilities in the postseason of scoring, I says you need to stretch your bench more. Luka Garza is no more slow than Vucevic. He's bigger and he can shoot. I says they need to stretch the bench more and bring some of these players out to match up against the Sixers.
Yeah, that was the strength of the team all year, I think, was the depth, the way Joe was able to play role player roulette and get the right guy on the right night who was playing well to give the team production and energy, and they have gotten away from that in the playoffs. And I think that sort of falls under the category, McCone, of getting away from their identity.
When you talk about the iso ball, which Al also brought up, Chris, do you think that that's legit? And who do you kind of fault when it comes to Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum, my turn, your turn, that we saw so much, especially in Game 6?
Yeah, I think that's on Brown and Tatum to recognize the way the Sixers are playing them, which is they'll give them those matchups, and then when they start trying to do their thing, the Sixers are loading up behind them. It's not necessarily a strict double or even a strict hedge. It's just guys that are kind of ready, that if they get past that first guy, they rotate over. It's sort of what the Celtics used to do to LeBron. Well, yes, LeBron. They do it to LeBron and Giannis, which is you want to give layers. That's kind of what they're doing, is giving layers of defense. But if that's going to happen, then you should be able to get the defense in rotation. It might not necessarily be that first pass that Brown or Tatum makes out of the hedging and the layers, but now it's the next pass because they're out of position, and you move the ball, and you should be able to do that. And I put it on Brown and Tatum. I think they have to go faster in terms of get the ball. Okay, I understand you want to survey the defense, but sometimes you need to make the defense react to you instead of you reacting to the defense. And the third point on this, where I blame both of them, is if you're not the guy with the ball in the ISO thing, you can't just stand there. You have to move. You have to either crash in or cut. You got to do something other than, and I understand there's spacing, but you have to do something other than just stand there and let your guy just, know that, okay, he's just going to stand. Like, basically, whoever doesn't have the ball, it's like, well, Tatum or Brown is taking this possession off because they don't have the ball.
Yeah, the lack of cutting and just off-ball screening and things like that have been...
It's non-existent.
Exactly,
yeah.
Just gone away these last couple of games. Where are you guys at? We haven't seen this in this series at all. Where are you at just going small? We haven't seen Tatum at the 5, period. Obviously, you're not going to do this for 48 minutes.
Yeah.
We're talking about when Nemi's out, maybe you take a look at Garza first, see if he's giving you anything. But if those guys aren't bringing it in tonight, do you just try to maximize spacing and be like, we want to just run Embiid up and down?
Yeah, I would try it. See how it works. Now, the problem there could be rebounding, but Tatum is an excellent rebounder for his size, and it depends on who else is on the floor with him. When you're going small, like someone like Walsh can obviously rebound, Brown can rebound. Shireman. It depends on what it is. But I think you could run into a problem if that small lineup is include, say, Hauser and Pritchard. Because now you're really at a rebounding disadvantage.
Well, the offensive rebounding was non-existent in Game 6 in that first half to begin with as well. But no, I think you kind of throw anything you can, throw the kitchen sink at the issues that you have right now. Tim is in Nashua. Tim.
So when Tatum was absent with the injury, they adjusted. I think it's an overall lineup for the actual playoffs that's, faulting Joe. He thinks that they can just roll with Tatum and Brown leading the way. I think they actually should have adjustments, for the playoffs. I just think that they're just overwhelmed. Do you guys feel the same way?
I don't feel like they're overwhelmed. I think there's an element of they sort of didn't take the Sixers seriously enough after they got up 3-1 and a lack of adjustments, and also sort of this idea of kind of losing their identity. And when I say losing their identity, I think it has to do with Brown and Tatum, as much as we group them together, are different players. And so I think when Tatum gets under pressure, his thing is, I'm going to do this step back, side step three.
Yeah.
I think Jalen's thing is, I'm going to go to the rim. And so which one of those things is the team sort of from an identity standpoint going to follow? Are they going to attack and try and get in the paint and go to the rim? Or are they going to do more the Tatum thing and follow his lead and take a bunch of threes? I think they've done the latter, which maybe for past teams would be okay. But for this team, as constituted, one of the things they did, and it wasn't, huge, but they dialed back the threes from last year by 15%.
Yeah.
And so getting in the paint, some mid-range stuff, getting to the rim, I would like to see more of that, because that's closer to the identity of this team than jacking up a bunch of threes.
Dan is in New Hampshire. Dan.
Hey, how we doing?
Good.
I just wanted to kind of echo on that. In the fourth quarter of the Game 6, when they emptied the bench looked like it had a lot of vigor, and it looked like it gave Philadelphia some problems with the amount of energy they were playing with. Like, I'm not sure if it was because the starters were, kind of just bummed out that they played like crap in the first half. But, it looked like it gave Philadelphia a little bit of trouble. We scored. It didn't look so lopsided. So I don't know if you dig into the bench a little bit.
Yeah, we can do that. And I do think they should extend the rotation. But let's not let's not fool ourselves here. When the bench guys came in, the Sixers relaxed.
Yeah.
And that was part of it. The Sixers said, the Celtics are waving the white flag. Like, if you just put a bunch of bench guys out there and played them for 35 minutes, you're going to get blown off the floor.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think playing like Jaylen Brown less is the solution to your success here moving forward if you're the Celtics.
You have to find the right guys to put around them on a certain night. And there has not been enough experimentation with that throughout the course of the series.
One thing, though, he mentioned the fourth quarter, and obviously it was a different fourth quarter in Game 6 because the bench guys came in. Yeah. But to me, that's really where the Celtics have put themselves in this position. Offensively, they have not executed well in the fourth quarter. And remember, you had an 11-point fourth quarter in Game 5. The fourth quarter of this game, you basically waved the white flag, but you had a 14-point third quarter. Do you realize the Sixers only scored 24 points in the third quarter of this game? You should have been able to claw back in, but you only scored 14. So I want to go back to fourth quarter execution here. Again, the Celtics, out of 16 playoff teams, they're 13th in field goal percentage in the fourth quarter at 40.9%. Unsurprisingly, they lead the NBA in percentage of attempts from three-point range in the fourth quarter this season. This playoffs. They lead the NBA in that. It's 59%. 59% of the shot attempts are from three-point range in the fourth quarter. That is just too high. It's actually 59.8. It's almost 60%. That is far and away the highest in fourth quarter offense in the NBA during the playoffs. They're the lowest in percentage of 2-point field goals. Only 40% of their field goals have been 2-point field goals in the fourth quarter of this series. So that goes back to something I said before. What's the identity of your team under pressure? Are you just looking for the three-pointer to bail you out, or are you going to bear down and attack the paint and try and make the Sixers defend and get to the free throw line or get in rotation? It seems like they're just going to jack up threes, and that hasn't really worked for them.
Well, the free throw line might not be the solution based on the way that they've shot from the line so far in this series. No, but to your point, though, and I think it's something that we've talked about, and certainly it's been a storyline in this series, especially, like, is this team right now, the way that it's playing, like, capable of grinding out sort of a win right now with their style of play. And that's something that I think that you have to look at, too, from a Celtics perspective.
Absolutely. And that's a question that I think the Celtics have to look at. It's a question that people, I think watching these games have looked at. It's a question that was raised by Robbie Hummel, actually, in the NBC Peacock broadcast.
Where does Boston find offense right now? They have struggled. But the question is for Boston, when they don't shoot the ball well, how do they grind wins? And right now, that percentage is in that range where when they've been at 30%, they have not won games in this series.
And that's a long-standing thing. That's not just this postseason. And look, we do have to step back a little. I mean, I hate to do the green teamer thing, but we do have to step back a little bit and be like, man, obviously expectations changed, but when the season started, I think the expectations weren't this, and the Celtics have done a great job getting to this point. But if you look back over the years, McCone and B. Rob, this has been the question about the Celtics under Mazzulla for a while. When the threes aren't falling, how do you find a way to win?
Yeah, what's your secondary pitch? Yeah. No, I think that's totally fair. I also, look, I mean, the expectations, 100%. Look, I'm one of the people that wanted them to tank. Let's get up there and get one of those guys at the top of this draft and go for it, because I didn't think you had a front court at all going into this season. I was proven wrong and
proven right in the playoffs.
Right. but the way that they outperformed expectations, for sure. Expectations also change, though.
Yes.
And I don't think that's just like you can wipe this thing away and, you know what, if you got bounced, you know what, this was supposed to be a gap year anyways, and so it is what it is. No, Jayson Tatum is back playing significant minutes, hopefully healthy right now, and that calf issue is not...
Well, it depends. His health depends on how he plays in Game 7.
Okay.
If he doesn't play well, he wasn't healthy. If he does play well, then he was healthy. Okay?
Gotcha.
That's how it works in Celtics land.
All right.
This was a gap year. Everything's a bonus. We're playing with house money. And Tatum's health depends on how he plays. If he doesn't play well, it was all the injury. If he plays well, he's Willis Reed, and he was probably pretty healthy.
Jake is in Boston. Jake.
Hey guys, how are you? Happy Saturday. I love the show. Keep it going. I had a question for you in regards to the center situation, because every time Nemi's in there, it seems like he gets in foul trouble in the first quarter. I think Vucevic is a cone. I don't really know what he's out there.
That's a great description. Yes.
Yep. And it kind of sucks, man. I was a huge Vooch fan a couple years back when he was with Orlando and with Chicago, and I was like, always wanted him to be a Celtic. I'm happy he is, but like, out there versus Embiid, man, it just looks not good, man. And I love Garza. I think that was a good pickup this year as well. But like, I don't want to look too forward. We're gonna get through tonight, of course. But like, if they match up against Cat and Mitchell Robinson, they're gonna get eaten alive. Those three. Like, I think it's a good trio to have for big men. But like, I don't want to look ahead too much. We need to win tonight, of course. But like, say they win tonight, you're playing Mitchell Robinson and Cat next week, right? And then after that, maybe it's Cleveland and Mobley and Allen. They're just gonna get eaten up. So, I want to get your guys' thoughts. I don't know, Kata's foul trouble and how Vucevic needs to just kind of step it up. I'll hang up and listen. Appreciate you guys.
No, thanks for the call, Jake. That was one of my big questions about Kata coming into the playoffs, because I saw in the regular season what his foul numbers were. And I'm like, oh, man, the playoffs, like, how is this going to he has to do a better job of staying on the floor. And then I would honestly go to Garza, again, as I said, ahead of Vooch. In this, you need Garza to have. I mean, he doesn't have to score as many points, but you kind of need Garza to have one of those like Kelly Olynyk, Grant Williams games.
The Grant Williams game, that was real.
Right.
That was real. It helped you big time get past Milwaukee for sure.
But who? So let me put it to you guys this way: if there were going to be a Celtics big, I'll say Olynyk was a big and Grant was a big too. If there's going to be a Celtics big who's going to have that type of performance in Game 7, out of the bigs they have, who would you say is the most likely to have it?
Great question.
I say it's Garza.
I'm kind of with you, because the offensive rebounding, like, that is a skill set that's consistent. So if he just gets a couple putbacks, I don't know if he's going to be on the floor long enough to make it happen, but if he gets the first crack off the bench over Vooch tonight, which I think should potentially happen, then if you get 10 rebounds from him in like 15 minutes, that might be like a difference in this game.
Or the Luke Cornett game last year, right?
Yeah,
in Game 5. Like, they need someone to have like the Luke Cornett game, and I think Luka's the guy. I think he could give you some offensive rebounds, knock down a couple of threes, give you a little lift.
I mean, I want to say Vucevic, but it's just you have not seen it at any point during his time in Boston where it works. So I'm probably with you guys when it comes to Garza. The Kata fouling thing is real, and it's a problem. And it feels like there's two fouls like 90 seconds into these games. That offensive foul, the screen there,
Loose ball stuff.
the Oubre offensive foul with the screen. I'm just like not even close to set.
And you know the thing about the fouling, I don't know if you guys have noticed this too, but I feel like obviously it affects his aggressiveness on the defensive end, but I feel like it's affected his aggressiveness on the offensive end, where when on those pick and rolls, I don't feel like he dives in as hard as he used to. I mean, one of the best actions they have had is the Tatum-Kata pick and roll.
Yep.
And it just feels like in Game 6 there was one. I don't know if he did the pick and roll with Tatum or somebody else, but he dove to the hoop and he just had to keep going and he got the pass.
Yes.
And he like blew the layup.
Blew the layup.
Why are you taking this layup from 7 feet out?
Yes.
Like keep
Great call.
going.
Yes.
You have a dunk.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, and kind of like shorted it. And,
Yes.
And yeah. There was another one, too, shot clock running down in the third quarter where I don't know where he was going, man, but he just dribbling across the paint, and you're just watching it going,
just hesitate.
This does not end well. I don't know how it ends, but I know it's not going to end well right now, and guess what? It did not. 617-779-0985. We'll get back to your phone calls, close things out on the Sports Hub Celtics show next.
The Sports Hub Celtics show continues after these.
All right, so I'll open it up to both of you guys. Do you think they come out and throw that first punch? Do you think we see a different Celtics team in this Game 7?
I think we see a different team. I am not confident they will come out and throw the first punch.
I worry if they go to 3-point route. I worry which way that's going to go. I think it's important for them to throw the first punch going to the back. I worry if they go to 3-point route. I worry which way that's going to go. I think it's important for them to throw the first punch going to the basket. And that doesn't just mean putting your head down because you had Joel Embiid there. So that's where lineup changes have to come into play potentially. Get Embiid out of the hoop, get the ball moving, get the Sixers out of position. But I think it is important for them to build confidence and get up early here because I don't think the crowd is going to be going to respond well.
It's going to be like a Bruins crowd,
right.
Like, oh crap, here we go again. Yeah, I think one thing that would signal to me they're going to do this would be if Brown and Tatum early on are both attacking the rim, trying to get into the paint and get to the basket, because Tatum has shot 59% on 2-point shots in this series. When he's been able to get to the rim, he can finish. He's been really good, but I think there's some settling by him and the team overall for some of the threes. He has not shot the three well in this series. He's about 36%. And as a team, they're at 35% shooting in threes in this series. So what would change my mind about them throwing the first punch would be if they come out and they're trying to get to the rim early. However, I'm worried if they try and do that early and don't get the calls, they'll lose their minds. They're just... Last time they played at the Garden in that fourth quarter, do you remember Tatum was fouled, but he didn't get the call, and
Yes.
all the way back down.
All the way back.
Slapping his arm, and he's even on defense, he's like looking at the official, and he's giving him the wave off. That is one area I am concerned about, is that they could become consumed by the officiating.
All right, I do want to get to the other playoff games here and just kind of go over some of the other stuff in the path if the Celtics do win. But I do want to ask both of you guys this question as well. Celtics lose tonight. What changes do you think happen, whether that's coaching staff, roster? B-Rob, what do you think?
I don't think coaching staff I expect to stay the same. Maybe another assistant is brought in. Obviously, the Celtics have lost some good ones in past years, so that would be an interesting call there. But I expect that to stay pat. As far as the roster goes, I think the priority just immediately goes to we need to get another legitimate big in here. Like we thought Nimi was going to be that guy. He's still a starter level player, but clearly was not ready for this level of playoff play to get to a contender with this if they go down here. And so I think I don't see a bigger switch than that, even though everything should be on the table if you're talking about superstars being available around the league.
I think there's got to be a Derek White conversation if you lose this game too, and just
really?
moving forward.
So
what takes place.
Good for you, McCone.
There.
I was thinking about saying that, but I was like, oh man, I don't know. He's such a fan favorite. The green team or Binky, that's going to be unpopular. So that's a hot take from Tim McCone.
What are you taking from him, Jim? What's the
I don't know. It's going to be tough with that money, right? In the way that he shot the ball this year.
But he's super pop. Remember what Kenny Atkinson said
he was
about
a
him?
top 5 player in the NBA.
I think there's teams that would be interested.
Hand up, we had a caller call in and bring up that quote this week because I totally missed Kenny Atkinson saying
missed that?
Yes,
Yeah.
but yeah, top 5 player, he thought, in the NBA with some of the things that he brings. And look, I mean, is this an outlier season when it comes to him shooting the basketball? I don't know, maybe, but I do think you do have to make foundational changes to this roster. If again, you're getting knocked out of the postseason by a team that on paper is not as good as you for the 3rd time in 4 years, something here has to change dramatically and shake that core up. And if you're not going to go Tatum or Brown, I think Derek White's the next guy that you point to, because ultimately you need somebody on this roster that is going to, if he's making that type of money, not shoot 21% from 3 for the first 5 games of this series.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I mean, he does so many things well. He's such a great defender, so that would hurt your defensive identity. The other element would be, how would somebody like Tatum respond to that? B-Rob, I think you probably know it better than I do, but
those guys are tight.
That's like Tatum's best friend on the team. So if you moved Derek White, you could make a case from a basketball standpoint about, I would call it rebalancing the roster.
Yeah.
In other words, we have Pritchard, we have some young guys like Shireman. We can be okay there. We won't be as good, but we'll be better with another big, and that will make us overall better. But what are some of the ancillary things there in terms of defensive identity of the team, and also does that tick off your superstar in Jayson Tatum, where he's like, you can't trade my guy?
All right, we're going to do headlines here quick, 90 seconds. On the other side, I do want to go around the NBA quickly with you guys and some of the other things that have taken place in the league. We'll do that next after headlines.